Good, we're live.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Monomoy Regional School District Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting for Thursday, May 27th. It is 6:33 p.m. and we opened the meeting at 5:35 and adjourned into executive session pursuant to MGL C30A Section 21, Paragraph 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Monomoy Regional Educators Association, MREA, Unit A. And we are now back here at 6:33, so we are going to start our regular meeting officially. So we've already done our roll call to order that happened at 5:35, so we are now moving into the next part of our agenda, which is our student representative. And do I have Amy Hinesley in the room? I do not see her. All right, so we're going to move past that and we may come back, but let's move into the next item, which is approval of minutes. So we'll start with the May 13th regular meeting minutes. If I can have a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy. A second?
Second.
It sounded like Jackie. So we have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Sharon, go ahead.
Yes, there's an error in the minutes.
Okay.
And on page 2, a quote of mine, where at the bottom it says, "In discussion, missed out, blah, blah." And so if you take off the last 7 words, and it should say, "and inserted as written by the individual evaluator." Those last words were never said by me. Instead, I said the other words.
Okay, so if you could repeat that one more time,
Yeah.
Sharon.
So if after the word school committee member there near the end, you cross the rest off, which I didn't say, and instead write "and inserted," there's the quote. Quote, "inserted as written" was the quote, "by the individual evaluator."
Okay, so that was your request. Is that, so that was a request, but that's not, yeah, that's not what we approved, but yes, that is the request that you made.
Yes, but people agreed to that. At least that's what I was voting for, was that I said that, Joe said that sounds good. And when I had talked with Joanne, this was maybe a month ago, she said embedded just meant that when you're writing the thing up that you just put that in. It doesn't mean they change anything that you say. It's just, you put the person writing it up, let's say like last time was Joanne, you write it up and you make it all work, but you don't have to change anyone's highlighted or underlined sentence. Just insert it as written. I thought we agreed to that 1 or 2 sentences.
Okay, thank you. Joe, go ahead.
I suggest we accept Sharon's correction pending Leah's checking the records of the meeting or the recording of the meeting. And should they say what Sharon asserts, that we agree to make that change or correction.
Okay, that sounds good. Is there, all right, so we're going to accept with Sharon's edit pending a follow-up by Leah to confirm that that was accurate.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Nancy.
I would suggest that we postpone the approval of these minutes until our next meeting.
That's a good idea. Actually, that's a much, yeah. Do I have consensus to just postpone these minutes to the next meeting so we'll have some time to review and get accuracy?
Yeah.
All right, I'm seeing, all right. So let's move the May 13th minutes to the next meeting, which will be June 10th. And we will bring those back after we've been able to confirm those. All right, so we're moving on to the May 6th minutes, which were from our forum. If I could have a motion to approve those minutes.
So approved. So moved.
All right, Sharon Sharon made the motion. Could I have a second?
Second.
And I heard Meredith. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, this is a motion to approve the May 6th forum community minutes as written. starting with Sharon.
Aye.
Thank you. And Nancy.
Aye.
Thank you, Joe.
Aye.
Thank you, Jackie.
Aye.
Joanne. And you'll have to come off mute, Joanne.
Sorry. Aye.
Thank you. Terry,
Aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
and I'm an aye, so that's unanimous. All right, now we're going to move into public comment, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Additional time is given at the discretion of the chair. So is there anybody tonight from the public who would like to speak? You can just take yourself off mute, give me a little wave, and I'll be happy to acknowledge you. All right, I am not seeing anyone. So we're going to move on to the, oh, did I hear somebody? Okay, so we're going to move on into reports and discussions. And first item is our Student Ambassador Club. And we're delighted. Phoebe, are you going to be leading us on this, or?
Yes, may I present my screen?
Yes, you absolutely may. And welcome, everybody.
Hi everyone, my name is Phoebe. I'm a junior. Julia, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Julia. I'm a junior as well.
And the Student Ambassador Club was an idea that we had thought of as part of our history class civics project for this year, and we'd like to formally propose the ideas here.
Okay, so what is the Student Ambassador Club that we're proposing? It's a student-led organization that will basically be a bridge between the student body and the school board, helping to improve the school, reduce workload, and improve student mental health as a whole.
How would the club be run? We would have biweekly meetings that will focus on discussing student concerns, and we'll present it to the school committee. Meetings will be held. We had the idea of JOSM hour, depending on if it's returning. If that would not return, then we would agree to either meet before school or after school. The ambassadors would not be required to attend every school board meeting, but it's recommended that at least one is present to provide insight for the functioning of the school committee. So we wouldn't have to be at every single meeting, but at least one of us should be there just to catch the rest up and keep everyone up to date.
So how are these ambassadors elected? Ambassadors will be elected by each grade along with class officers. Students can run for the position, give a speech to their classmates, and elected ambassadors will hold the position for 1 year, but they have the option to run again the next year. So basically, like any other high school club.
What will happen during the meetings? The ambassadors will lead the club, which will have open meetings, so anyone can attend the meetings without formally being a member of the club. The meetings are run and facilitated by the ambassadors. They can take turns taking charge of the meetings. We had planned for there to be, and I'll get to this later on in the presentation, but I think I should mention it now as well. There will be 5 ambassadors, 1 from each grade. So each grade will elect an ambassador. And anyone can present ideas to the club either during meetings, or there could also be a weekly or bi-weekly Google form for anyone who isn't able to attend the meetings but has an idea that they want to share with the group. Ambassadors are responsible for proposing ideas to the school committee. However, any member can contribute to the discussion before the proposal. Students can attend meetings and present proposals to the ambassadors, and the ambassadors will draft a proposal for the next school committee meeting.
Here are some of the roles. So the ambassadors, like Phoebe said, there'll be 5 of them, and it's one from each grade level. And they'll basically just lead meetings and present ideas to the school board. Members are students that join the club, and they're like active members, and they make decisions and collaborate with the student ambassadors. They also propose new proposals for the school board, but they don't attend the school board meetings like the ambassadors do. They're just part of the club. And contributors are students that attend meetings and propose ideas to the ambassadors. The club is basically just open to anyone, and contributors are not expected to return to each meeting, but they become engaged with the club, and they are encouraged to become members too.
And that is our presentation.
So that's the end of your presentation, Phoebe and Julia? So
Yes.
okay, thank you. Before I invite comments and questions from the school committee, I would love for both of you to tell us a little bit about how this idea came to be. What inspired this idea?
Okay. Well, we decided to look at an issue that we thought was important in our school, and the issue that our class decided on was students feeling overtired and unmotivated to do their work. And after some interviews with students and students filling out surveys, we found that a lot of it was due to, and actually after a meeting with chair of the school committee, we found that people were unaware of the issue. And something that we had discussed was maybe having a few students sit in on the school committee meetings so they could kind of speak up for the students and voice issues that weren't being heard, and to sort of act as like a student voice in the school committee. And it was something that the whole class thought was a great idea. And we thought it was one that wasn't over ambitious and one that we could actually accomplish. And yeah, and we all think it would be really helpful, and there was a lot of positive feedback from other students as well.
Right. So let me ask this, and Julia, I'd love anything you want to weigh in. So just for a little bit of background for the school committee members, Phoebe and Julia, and I think there were a couple of others who reached out to me to ask if students had an issue with something, what was the protocol? So we had a conversation, and I invited Joanne as the vice chair. Joanne and I and a group of the high school students had a conversation about some concerns they were having. And we all agreed that, to talk amongst the students, to take it to the principal, but what happens beyond that? So this idea that you're looking at on the screen was the idea of the students. And I commend you for putting this together. Julia, do you have something you want to add? Anything that when we had that initial conversation that you want to add as far as the inspiration?
I think that it was just like really important because fatigue and motivation, like every student goes through it, every student experiences it, and I feel like this would be like a great way to voice our like concerns, our opinions, and to just like be present in these meetings. And I feel like that's really helpful for the whole like student body and in the high school. And everyone in the class agreed on it. We got like great feedback on it. And it was just like everyone was supportive of it and everyone thought it was a great idea. And I think it's a great idea too.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you very much. If Phoebe, if you want to stop your screen share, and then I'm going to open it up for questions and comments from the school committee. And that way, school committee members, there you go. Sharon, go ahead. And Sharon, you'll have to come off mute.
I'm thrilled about this. Ever since Monomoy started, well, actually, when it first started, we had much more input from the students right at the beginning, and then it kind of faded to us just hearing about scores and activities that were going on. And so off and on, between other things with work, several of us have said, you know, this would be a great idea. We're supposed to be having somebody on the school committee, not to vote, but on there from students. So that's been a little bit of a targeted effort for this year. So I'm just so glad that you did this. Or is there any person who, teacher or something, that said that they might want to be advisor for this? That's a question for you,
Yep,
Phoebe or
and
Julia.
Phoebe or Julia, if you want to take that question. You can just unmute yourself. There we go.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute it. It wasn't popping.
I know the problem.
We have not approached the teachers yet, and gotten a confirmed, not sponsor, advisor. But we had a few ideas of who we could ask. At one point, we had considered adding it on to the class officers. So like this new position, the student ambassador for your grade, could go and attend the student officer meetings, in which case the advisor of your class would be the, not club advisor, but it would be like another adult who would be part of the group. But that was just an idea that we had discussed. I don't think we had confirmed anything yet.
Thank you. Sharon, any other questions? Looks like Sharon might have frozen. Joanne, did you want to add anything? Because you and I joined this wonderful group of students to kind of talk through, and you might have anything to add from that initial meeting.
Yes, I have to say I'm impressed that the young people that we spoke with took it further and they didn't just drop it. It was an eye-opener for me, and I'm going to say I heard the word stressed often. Stressed, tired, and with good explanations of what they were talking about. The other thing that I really like about this proposal is we're not going back to the offices of the class so that they have double duty. We are adding more students to the picture, being able to tell us what we could do for them, giving us suggestions. Nobody knows better what the need is rather than those that are sitting in the middle of the school. What would work best for you? It was an enlightening afternoon. I felt really good when I got off. And that's after having taught 30 years. So you still brought me something new to think about, and I'm quite proud of you. Good job.
Thank you, Joanne. Terry, go ahead.
Thanks, Tina. Phoebe and Julia, great presentation. Great idea. I echo the last two members of the school committee in that I think that it gets a lot more kids involved in some of the stuff that makes schools challenging. My concern is a lot of what you describe usually is first addressed with either a student senate headed up by the principal of the school, with regular meetings, if not weekly, but monthly, with a principal of the school attempts to make certain the issues of stress and low morale with kids and behaviors, get solutions out there with her faculty and leadership or his. And I just have a concern how to solve your needs to speak to the public elected school committee members, but we don't have any authority to all of a sudden call up the super principal and say, we've heard this, you might not have, we'd like to see you correct it. I don't have a quick answer because I think the idea is worth developing, but my only issue is at some point the high school administration, specifically the principal, should be plugged in on a regular basis to let him or her have the opportunity to begin to work on these issues long before the school committee.
Thank you, Terry. I just want to add one thing that we didn't mention, or I didn't mention. When Phoebe and Julia and you'll have to remind me, Phoebe, who else was in the group, but when they first reached out to me and then I brought Joanne into it, one of the first questions they asked was, do we have a homework policy? That's how the conversation started. And so when I asked a little bit more about where that question was coming from, we all agreed to get on a Zoom call or Google Meet actually, and just talk about where was the question coming from. And that's where we started to talk about all the stress and lack of motivation and that sort of thing. So just giving a little bit of context to the school committee as to maybe where this idea came from. And Principal Police, at any moment, if you want to weigh in on this, feel free to take yourself off mute.
Hello. I don't know if Ms. Sheptick is on the call, but I think that, I think it would be good to hear from her as well. So all of these issues have been generated from our junior civics projects, which have actually been a lot of fun to be part of. And Lizzie, feel free to come off mute too and sort of fill in the committee about the work that you've been doing with your students. So our students essentially decided to try to solve a school-based problem. And I've been meeting with a lot of students. Homework policies have been redundant in multiple groups, as well as managing stress, as well as the schedule. And this particular group reached out to the school to the school committee ahead of reaching out to me, which is perfectly fine, and I let them go ahead and do it. But I do agree with Mr. Russell that most of what we're talking about is typically it's a school administration issue first and foremost, and I think that it should be solved at the school level, not necessarily at the school committee level. I think it's wonderful to have our students part of the committee, and Sharon and I have talked about this at great length, and I do think that there should be a sitting student on the committee, not a voting member. That is actually part of the typical bylaws, and I think that we should move in that direction. But a lot of what I'm hearing tonight are policies, procedures, and practices that are really building based, and I think that it would be great to get a student, a student committee led alongside the school administration, so we can work to solve it together. I'm not sure it's a school committee issue.
Hi, I'm Lizzie Sheptick, Julia and Phoebe's teacher. And I first would like to thank members of the school committee, Dr. Carpenter, Ms. Police, Mr. Alexander, for being so supportive of this project. It was the first year of the Department of Ed's civics project for the 11th grade. And in all, I teach 3 sections of US history, and Mr. Sumner also teaches 3 sections, and the overwhelming topic had to do with mental health, stress, fatigue, too much work. Like, so the lesson that Jake Sumner and I got was that the kids were feeling stressed and they really cared about their peers and their mental health. So in this case, I think what Phoebe and Julia and my C block came up with was basically the ambassadors would be like advocating for students in policies that had to do with like workload and mental health. So not in like all student issues, but to just raise awareness and to have the school committee aware that so many students were experiencing a lot of work, stress, and a lack of motivation.
Thank you, Lizzie. And Jackie, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
This is actually really exciting because, as I think Tina mentioned, this is right in line with actually one of our school committee goals for this year, which was incorporating the students into our processes and the committee, what we do, and really trying to work on our transparency as a committee. And we felt that the voice of a student would best fit that. And we kind of were stumped on how we were going to develop that. And I think that Joanne and Tina's role in meeting with the civics group was key, because you guys are really, you're on to something. And I think as a civics project alone, just the creation of an ambassadors club in it itself is success. And I think you're going in the right direction. I think that it needs, I think it's going to work, and I think it's going to be great. And I think an ambassador or liaison for the students in the school committee forum is very key for us to be productive members and for you guys to be productive students in the school. I agree with Ms. Police and Mr. Russell that a lot, or not, I wouldn't say a lot because you guys didn't do a lot of examples, but some of the examples are definitely more on the building level and less than on the school committee level. And there will be times when I'm sure that there will be things at school committee level, and it will be great that you can formulate that as a representative and come and present or be part of the discussion. What comes to mind to me are our policy subcommittee meetings where we're actually working on policies and being able to be there as public and contributing, I think would be beneficial and a really great learned experience. Although you can't be a voting member, I think that you would have a lot of valuable input. And I would like to see, in my vision, is that this ambassadors club morphs into some of the larger issues that our district faces and in our communities, the budget, politics, things like that. That's the big stuff that we deal with. And you guys learning that and then giving us just a different perspective and what you're seeing and having that communication and then reporting back. If you're attending the meeting as the ambassador, I would love that you're going back and reporting back in your club what you heard, what you saw, what topics we're talking about as well, because I think that would be equally as important. So I think you guys have a great idea, full support of it. And I think it'll kind of mold into a really good fit for the district. And congratulations, it's awesome.
Thank you, Jackie. Anybody else in the school committee? Nancy, go ahead.
I want to agree with a lot of what Jackie just said, that I think this is a great start. I think it's a great way to get to the point of what we're trying to do, which is having a full active member of the committee, a non-voting member, because they can't vote. So I think that this would be a great way to begin the process. And I agree with Jackie completely on the having students participate in the policy discussions, because I think that's where a lot of these little intricacies that they're discussing are really going to come into play. So I think you guys did a great job. You did a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for coming and doing this for our meeting. And you did some great work and some great research. And I'd love to see you guys be a part of our meetings, and then hopefully even more a part than just coming with proposals, but being a part of our discussions as well, because I think your input would be invaluable in our discussions.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else in school committee? So Phoebe and Julia, really terrific job. And I think, I'm sure you got all of the feedback tonight, and you can always go back and watch the recording in case you missed any of the comments. But I think there were a couple of things that I was hearing when it comes to policy, when both of you reached out to me initially, and the question was about the homework policy. Yeah, the school committee sets policies. And I think that was a good question to bring to my attention as the chairperson. Some of the other things you addressed tonight, I think Mr. Russell and several of the school committee members weighed in that there are things that need to go to Ms. Police. So I think this was a really good exercise to learn how these things work and what needs to go to the attention of the principal, what might need to go in a different direction. And I love the concept of Student Ambassador Club, and I'm hoping that I know we're coming up on the end of the school year. What are your plans beyond this? Are you planning to continue this project, or does this kind of complete with your junior year? Can you give us a little bit of input on where this is going to land for both of you?
Well, I know the way that I had sort of pictured it, and I think our class had sort of pictured it, is that it would continue on throughout the years, so it wouldn't be just a 1-year club. Although if it comes to not be as successful as anyone had hoped, then maybe it wouldn't be the best idea to continue it if it's really that bad. But if it is successful and as successful as we hope it will be, then we hope that it can continue out and continue on, and we can pass it on to the other grades, which is one of the reasons why I think it's important to include all of the grades in the club. So it's not just them kind of guessing on what to do next, because someone as an 8th grade ambassador, if they choose to run again the next year in their freshman year, then they can kind of like guide the next person down into it, so that when the senior ambassador leaves, then the other people will kind of know what to do, and the whole thing won't be totally off. It's a position that I would love to run for and try out for and be a part of. I think it sounds like a really great idea and a really cool position. And I do agree that it would be really great to check in with our administration and involve them. And I think that it's not only to help the school committee understand students, but to help the students understand the school committee. So it goes both ways of it. But
Thank
it's
you.
something that I definitely hope will carry on.
Great, Phoebe. Julia, do you want to add anything?
I totally agree with what Phoebe said. I feel like if it doesn't work out, then I feel like that's okay. But if it does, like in the future, I feel like it would be really helpful. And yeah.
Great. Well, let me just, again, thank both of you. And if I could just say that it's a great idea, absolutely great idea. I think we all agree with it. I would just probably recommend that you sit down with Miss Police, kind of talk it through, see what part of it falls under her purview, and maybe you could always come back to us if there's another layer of it. I think it's a wonderful idea. And as I explained to both of you when we met, we have a policy subcommittee. So, you know, who's to say you can't come and present to our subcommittee? I mean, these are just possibilities. We also have public comment. So anybody is welcome at any time as a student to come and speak at public comment. So there's a lot of ways that your voices can be heard. So please continue. I think we all like the direction of this project. I would encourage you to keep fine tuning it. Maybe sit down with Miss Police and talk about it a little bit more. You're welcome to come back and present a more refined version in the future, near future. Okay, all right. Any other comments, anything else from school committee? Phoebe and Julia, thank you very much. Wonderful presentation, wonderful proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, next on the agenda is the Monomoy Regional Middle School Program of Studies. Mr. O'Shea, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. That was wonderful. It's good to hear from the kids. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. And I just want to ask Leah if she could present her screen. If Leah is still there. So tonight, I just wanted to give a quick overview as far as the state of the school and as we are at this point. And there's been a lot of kind of shifting going on over the course of this year, and a lot of takeaways from the school year that I want to bring to your attention, and then give you a view of where we're going in the upcoming school year. So thank you there, Leah. So as far as our core curriculum, this year was really unique in the sense that we had to make revisions to our core content, and we had ELA, mathematics, and science as our defined core content, and social studies was placed within the unified arts curriculum, and students therefore received it on a every other day basis. I'm happy to report next year we'll be able to go back to a design that we value and a design that is consistent with student learning. But some highlights just to point out related to ELA, mathematics, science, and social studies and the direction that we're going. In ELA, the focus has been for the time that I've been there and continues to be is brain frames and really fine tuning our writing process. We've continued that this year through a closer look into the into the grammar components of writing in the 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. Specific to math, we've really looked to align our practices at the middle school to the high school. I've had a lot of conversations with both Mark Smith and Jen Police on the incorporation of pre-algebra. Our 7th grade math teachers are excited about the possibility of increasing the amount of instructional time around mathematics. Our current design allows for a 48-minute block, and it's just not adequate for the amount of content that that students need to learn over the course of any grade. So we're looking to shift that to incorporate more practice time related to mathematics and continue with our pre-algebra design for all students. We've seen a lot of success over the course of even the COVID year, but in the year previous to that, where we've had the advanced math definition, but we've kind of shifted that to pre-algebra moving forward. Specific to science, it really is getting involved in our community and getting involved with what's going on the Cape and getting real life scientists into our classrooms as much as possible. And the most recent one that I can kind of discuss was the squid dissection and talking about the common ancestry of squid and to clams and kids getting to see that evolution in progress. So that was a really fun activity that Miss Nyrick and other 6th grade science teachers put together. Really proud of the direction we're going related to social studies next year. It's been an area where I feel like it's been left out, certainly this year. The social studies teachers as a team have kind of been moved around and certainly persevered through this difficult year. Our social studies lead has been asked to teach English this year and just the way kind of things unfolded. However, next year we've got direction, we've got structure, and we've got support. And we're really looking forward to the assistance with the DESE as far as the implementation of the pilot program around world studies or social studies and social sciences. The emphasis is on, as it says there, inquiry and investigation and getting kids involved in the different aspects of social studies. And that's an opportunity that spans from 5th to 7th grade. The biggest area of shift that we're looking to do moving forward would be to take a deeper look into world languages. World languages over the course of my time at the middle school has shifted at the elementary level. And the incorporation of the additional science at the elementary level and what that means to the middle school is it gives us a little more flexibility of when we can start world language. Our current design has it at 45 times 45 times for Spanish and 45 times for Latin at every grade level. And it's exploratory in nature, and we really want to look at it as a year-long course and really get kids prepared and interested and engaged in world languages at the 7th grade level. So one of the schedule iterations that we're looking at this point, kind of post-pandemic, is to have a year-long course for all students in 7th grade and the exploratory model beginning at the 6th grade level. And also in the unified arts realm, we kind of consistent with our strategic plan is that community service learning component. We're really thrilled at the concept of increased volunteerism and getting kids out into the community. We've had small successes related to the Oyster grants, and we want to continue that with, and we've recently hired a teacher that was working as a 5th grade teacher to kind of fulfill that role as a community service learning teacher. So community service and promoting student leadership is really the direction of that position, and really excited about the potential with that. As far as our other, core unified art content areas, we do have similar schedules that, and we'll be welcoming back the things that we really defined ourselves by in the past. And that's, through our arts, through music courses, and through our STEM. So I'll pause right there just to, if that's all right, and see if there's any questions related to those couple slides.
Thank you, Adam. School committee members, any questions? You can either just raise your, oh, Nancy has a question. Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, Nancy.
Just a quick question about the language. So you're looking to potentially do exploratory in 6th grade. So they would explore potentially 2 languages over the course of 6th grade. And then would they choose a 7th grade language?
Yeah, yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's correct. We're looking at it as an opportunity at the conclusion of 6th grade to make that choice and then move forward with a year-long course. What we found is just the participation rates as they kind of go on to the high school haven't necessarily played out because they've taken Latin or Spanish. And my hypothesis on that is that they haven't totally, it's been exploratory at best, and it needs to be, if we want to see success within it, we have to create a schedule that students can be successful with.
Okay. Just I guess maybe 2 follow-ups. Would they be required to choose in 7th grade? And what if they choose not to?
I do have a lot of experience with like seminars and things like that. And I know that's kind of like the first thought that comes to mind is like students aren't going to be able to have choice. This does play out pretty well, typically from my experiences, as far as kids getting their top choice. And then the secondary factor that I was looking at would be how they're performing in those classes. So if students are performing well in those classes, that may be a secondary factor.
Okay. And then I guess my other question is, if they take it as a 7th grade or a full year course, would there be, and this might be with Miss Police, so I'm not sure if she's still here, a potential for them testing out of a 1st year course at the high school?
Yeah. So when they arrive in, and that's really the direction that it's going, is looking at that from, is this student ready for Spanish 2 and can it be made available? And that's really the purpose as far as the shift is to make that track available to students. And really to get them, like I said, engaged into foreign language earlier and having successes within it at a younger grade.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And then I also just want to say I appreciate the math name change to pre-algebra 7th grade. I think it's just a name, and I understand the content was the same, but it makes a huge difference. It really does. It's for them to understand the progress and the steps that they'll be taking. So thank you.
And it's consistent with the high school. And that's it's an opportunity, I think of it as getting on the train. There's a couple different opportunities now to kind of get on that train and related to pre-algebra and other mathematics at the high school. It's all in all of this. It's rooted in equitability, and that's just an example of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Terry, go ahead.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, Terry.
A couple of questions, just to refresh my memory of middle school. On the science grade curricula, it says, my question would be frequency of hands-on labs. For example, in grade 5, 6, and 7, I know the middle school formerly was Chatham High School. So unlike a lot of middle schools, you kind of semi-lucky to have a couple of labs at least, maybe. Is there any intention to try to make certain the kids get X number of labs in grade 5, like 5 experiences or 10, based on the topics, and then increase that lab experience?
Now, a lot of that is predicated on teacher schedules and student schedules related to that. As far as incorporation of that, there's not a set amount that we've kind of defined it. But it is a expectation around hands-on learning, and like I said, the squid dissection lab isn't necessarily a must do, but when discussing evolution, it's a can do. And different teachers kind of bring their different experiences to the table. And the goal is to make sure that teachers have the opportunity to share those out and with the other teachers and share those out with students to get as much of that hands-on learning in place. And my goal from my perspective is to make sure the time is available for them to do that. Certainly this year, although difficult as far as doing labs with the shared materials and the distancing and things like that, there was a plethora of opportunity with the design of the schedule, and teachers took advantage of that.
Thanks, Adam. 2 or 3 quick things. Social studies by grade 5, 6, and 7. What are some of the major topics? 1 or 2 of them in grade 5, 6, and 7.
So in 6 and 7, this is where the shift to the social studies design, the curriculum has been helpful to us because it's studying of regions with similar concepts. So it's somewhat interchangeable in nature, the way that is set up. But the focus of the curriculum related to the state is really taking into aspects the connections to the society today, into in 6th and 7th grade into those regions. And then related to 5th grade, it's more of American history in the study of American history post-Civil War.
I know high school grade 8 has a segment of civics.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all folks raise that as a beginning issue around Congress, legislation, Senate, 3 executive branches, et cetera?
Through our student council, you'll have aspects of that, but not. It is defined in 8th grade. I'm trying to recall if there's a unit of it related to 5th grade. I'll have to get back to you on that.
No rush. Lastly, I agree with Nancy on the math issue, how long I intended to try to get in grade 7 pre-algebra. So there were sections in my school that were Algebra 1 kids. And finally we got there. So I think that's a good move towards it. Last question, Latin and Spanish. That would, and I agree with that too, the experience I had in grade 7, the kids had a full-time half year of Spanish and then half year of French required. And then in grade 8, which I happen to have, they chose all year French or Spanish. That would require, and probably will know in another year or so, staff issues, meaning increase of staffing. At least I'm looking at that and saying, great.
It's a shift in design. Like there's a way to do it. It would just have to be, what I'm proposing there and what I'm sharing out is an idea that came to fruition from our scheduling committee as well as student input and staff input, and that's in, I would say, more of the beginning stages in general. But it is something that's highlighted and can be done with our current staffing. What it would require us to take a different look at how 7th grade, you would have to team 7th grade, like have they'd have to be on a unique schedule of sorts for their unified arts courses.
Thanks, Adam.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else, school committee? Joanne?
Hi, Adam. A couple of questions about the ELA curriculum or the writing section. So you're going to develop common writing rubrics, which I think is excellent. Will you have common writing assessments so that teachers can compare what they're seeing and then they can remedy the rubric, because sometimes that's the problem, or they can share techniques in teaching particular parts?
Yeah, and that's been a drive and something we've worked to. Our instructional leader Sarah Cortese is working related to that, and so the past 4 or 5 years has really been a focus on the writing process and the writing development and what that looks like through BrainFrame. So there's like all staff members up until the previous pre-pandemic, where that was where the training was related to, just to make sure there was a common language associated with that. And so there's a similar goal to grammar and grammar components that that was kind of the next step. And then there's also the practices that you'll see it kind of specific to grade level and at 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. At 6th and 7th grade, and it was a unique year because we ended up hiring, as I mentioned earlier, we ended up hiring ELA teachers. We ended up hiring ELA teachers at both 7th grade and the 6th grade, kind of shifted teachers' responsibilities around. So, this year it was kind of put on the back burner as far as what the writing process looked like. But as far as moving forward, we've utilized rubrics and we kind of lean on the state approved rubrics. They're pretty clean and helpful as far as giving teachers direction, and can be used throughout, 5th through 7th grade.
And are you working on common assessments?
In related to common assessments, that has also been something we've used in the past for grade level common assessments. At the end of the 3rd quarter, we've used as a tool to kind of drive what we've had in the past, which was our seminar groups. So if students are struggling, then we would use that writing assessment. Yes, those are consistent within grade level.
Good. And then question is, so if you're working 5, 6, 7, are you informing 8?
Vertical alignment, yeah. Yeah, so and that's the essential component of a middle school, is like, how are you vertically aligning what you're doing, and I know, like, for example, the ARC, the ARC reading program is coming about, and it's K through 4, and it's going to be that, and that's going to create a lot of additional areas of strength for students. And also with any program, you're going to find areas of weakness within it. So it's being aware of that. And I talked to Mark Smith about that. Like, our 5th grade teachers at a minimum should kind of know what's going on related to that program. And it's the same way the other way, and looking, and that's where our conversations are with Mark Smith and with Jen Police, and saying, how does our 7th grade curriculum align with what's happening at the high school? I know Sarah Cortese's worked with the instructional leader at the high school. I know he presented last week, but his name escapes me right now. But they've, and that's where it is. It all starts with having or fostering connections between those, what's happening at the middle school and what's happening at the high school.
Good. And then one last question, just to make the job a little more difficult. Do you see it working across subject matter? So I envision your history working with your ELA as far as writing goes, so the kids know the different kinds of writing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's contingent upon relationships again. That's the area within our teaming that we've been really successful on. Our professional development at the end of the year, we're really going to reiterate the shared expectation of writing practices, and that we all have a piece in that. That's something that's really become a lot stronger in the middle school, and it starts with having a strong foundation in writing, like we've developed. And when we put in place brain frames, for example, it wasn't just limited to the ELA teachers. We did it from the PE teachers to the art teachers across the board, like in core content, and it really boosted us as far as our students' ability to write.
Oh, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Meredith and then Sharon. Meredith, go ahead.
Hi, Adam. I just have a couple follow-up questions. So I was wondering about the placement test too for world languages. So I'm happy to hear that that could continue. I know only a few students have taken advantage of it over the years. So it would be nice to see, you know, a larger number of students take advantage of that, you know, moving forward. Did you say, so I know it's going to be exploratory in 6th grade. Will there be exposure at all in 5th grade?
And this is a design, like currently it's exploratory 5th, 6th, and 7th. So if you kept with our current design of staffing, so we will have beginning next year, it'll be 2.0 or 2 positions related to one for Spanish and one for Latin. So a complete schedule would be filled up in our design by having an exploratory 6th and a everyday 7th.
Okay.
So to answer your question, not within the day. I know and I have talked to Jen about additional programming for kids that are interested in other languages, as far as doing that as well.
Okay, that sounds great. And then just my other kind of just a comment. I'm so excited to kind of hear about the community service coming back, and the Oyster Flats was a big hit with my daughter. So I'm excited that, you know, those community service projects are going to be coming back and having lots of opportunities for the kids. So I'm excited about that. So thank you.
Sharon, go ahead.
So, Mark, I was frozen out, so I'll have to watch on TV the beginning of this. But just to follow up a little bit about the language arts that we were talking about earlier, one of the reasons for the new program at the elementary school is basically the weakness that we've had in writing. So I'm concerned about the kids from this year on through whenever the writing kicks in more at the elementary schools, to make sure the kids know about very simple things like capitalizations, punctuation marks at the end, commas, quotations, those simple things. And I know that a number of them don't know those things. So is there a remedial thing, or do they take it up in their class to do this? I'm just not really sure, but I'm concerned for kids just moving on without getting some of these things.
Adam, if I can hop in and grab that one. So Sharon, when you actually pull apart our MCAS data, the conventions is actually where our students score the strongest. So it's actually when you pull apart the data and you look at things like periods, capitalizations, use of grammar, it's actually where our students score the strongest. It's actually an idea development that our students score the weakest. So they actually, Mark Wilson was actually famous for saying, our kids have nothing to say. And that's actually where they're the weakest. And it was actually one of the reasons that drove us to this that reading program, because it was really spends kids for a long time in the themes and building background knowledge, and it's around investigation and really developing a deep idea. The work that Adam mentioned earlier, the vertical work between the ELA department at the middle school and the ELA department at the high school has been focused this year around common language around writing, and common vocabulary around things like theme and topic, so that the teachers at both schools and both vertically and then horizontally across the departments are all using the same language when addressing these things with students and developing them in the same ways. So it's to get on this idea on how do we better develop ideas with students to better bolster and improve their writing. So
I
sorry, go
really
ahead.
appreciate what you're saying. I didn't know that about that they have nothing to say. I was assuming, because I haven't known kids with that issue, but of course that's a priority. But
Yeah.
I want to know, because I do know a number of kids at the middle school that do have problems with the things I'm talking about. And what happens?
As a former middle school teacher, there's a difference between a middle school student who knows, there's a difference between a middle schooler who knows when to put a capital and when he or she chooses to put a capital. There's a very distinct difference there. And middle schoolers oftentimes will just choose not to use periods and capitals, even though they know when to use periods and capitals. There's a very fine line between those two things.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that it's a strength on our MCAT and that we have plans. I'll check into it more. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? I just had a quick question, Adam, on the student internship. I find that very interesting at the middle school level. Could you tell us a little bit more about the internship program and maybe give us a couple of examples?
Yeah, so I've had discussions, and it is a new position, so we're going to allocate some time over the summer to kind of define what that looks like. But definitely getting involved in our community connections and making those bridge connections with our elder residents is one of the aspects that we want to explore. Working with our community agencies that are producing, so kids know what that looks like. If it's in the, for example, in the technology field and development of apps, like I want the kids to, be exploring what that looks like and see that in action. And then doing hands-on projects in relating what we're doing with our community service learning to our STEM and our STEM activities. And we have developed and with Mike Newby and Matt Barnes have led us down a good road as far as STEM and STEM opportunities. We're adding Emily Nyrick to that mix next year, and kind of thrilled as far as what that looks like and the potential is there for kids to produce, and that's getting kind of to the root of kind of who I guess I am as a leader is and what I see lacking from like this year is and kind of talking about what our student representatives and student ambassadors were talking about earlier. It's that purpose and the want and the will and kind of building that in and building that in realistic, true ways. And that's connection through our community. So it is, Tina, it is really it's a work in progress that it's really exciting, fun work that I can't wait to really get down into this summer.
Yeah, fantastic. I love anything practical. So that's really good. Anybody else? And I think, do you have any other slides, Adam?
I do, but I mean, I feel like I'd kind of say, Meredith, should I stop now? Like, you think, or should it, Nancy? Joe, you haven't asked a question, so I'm going to keep going until Joe asks a question. So I guess, Leah, will you go ahead and share me up again? I do want to share something about the Bright program. I think it's important, and it is something where we're going to be looking to implement next year. And in our Bright program, if you're not familiar with it, it stands for Bridge for Resilient Youth in Transition. During my time, once again, it was my 6th year at the middle school, I've felt that there's been students that have been underserved, and it's based on our capacity as a building, and there's been things that we can do if we had a design that would welcome it. And the Bright program is something that I've seen in other districts and successfully implemented. It's a program of such that students that are either going through trauma or have experienced a great deal of school loss through personal loss or through medical issue. This gives those students a soft landing ground of sorts. And so I'm really excited about the potential of having a designated space, classroom that's really a work-oriented space to help our kids kind of get back on their feet again. And this is something, if you look at our design of our school, students transition every 48 minutes in a typical school year. And it's one of those pieces where not every kid is ready for that throughout the entire year, especially when they're going through, personal tragedy or facing, issues that are outside of their control. So we're looking to develop a program to help these kids in an intervention style of sorts, where students can have that outside of classroom and have their own setting of sorts for like 8 to 12 week time spans until they're reacclimated into the general education programming. It is something that we've been talking about. I think we've been working with our guidance department, our counselors, our school psychologist, and our team leader, and it's been something that we've really wanted to kind of explore and want to have to really give us that tool that we're missing at the middle school. And so we have, just through restructuring within our budget next year, I think there's a way to kind of pull this off so that we can have support with our guidance department and through special education teacher support as well. All right, Leah. And just because I keep talking about it, our post-COVID schedule design is right in front of you, and it's this this design that the bookends of the day are in orange there, and that's really something that I want you to know over the course of the last 6 years has blossomed. Those clubs before and after school have gone up about I think there was 4 total the year before I started. And then now as of last year, there was about 100 clubs that were either before or after school. So our students are coming into the building a lot more than they did 6 years ago or the first year of this building. And we're very proud of this aspect. And I want to solidify this. I want this to be something that kind of defines us, having that before and after school opportunities, extending the school day through transportation on both ends. Right now we have it a late bus that students can take at the end of the day. We don't have, and I'm kind of proposing that we get a early morning bus to get kids here earlier so that they can participate in clubs. Teachers, community members, and different people that have different careers outside of school come to our school and work with our kids in a club fashion. And there's just a variety of clubs that kind of take place. So when we built the seminar block in the middle of that schedule, there were a lot of enrichment courses that have slowly over time increased. And we see them, if they're really successful, we see them pushing into those before and afternoon club slots. So we've built this design that really welcomes students to participate, for all students to participate in clubs before and after school. And in a potential schedule in a shift in order to increase mathematics, ELA, science, and social studies would be to remove that seminar, recognizing we're getting a lot of it within those passion projects and those clubs and sports before and after school. So if you look at this next schedule, this is just a bare bones schedule of what the possibility of that would look like a 60-minute design with opportunity for student practice within each of the content areas, and those enrichment opportunities that are kind of exploratory both on the bookends of the day, and continue to have that unified arts approach. All right, I'll pause there. Or I'll
Thank
stop
you.
there.
Any other questions, school committee members? Sharon, go ahead.
I just want to say that I love the new schedule. And the thing that I like the most about it is that most of the academics are in the morning, and that the Unified Arts and one class is in the afternoon. Because I think that I just think the kids will enjoy it more, and you'll get more out of them in the morning. So I don't know how you work that schedule, but it looks fabulous.
Yeah, like I said, it's a bare bones schedule at this point, and that's really something to. If I were to take collectively and make one just iteration of what the schedule would look like, it would be something similar to that, where you have increased instructional time. I know the topic of homework constantly comes up, and it's a problem at the middle school. Kids that are kids in the equity around the opportunity to do homework and kind of the place and that safe landing ground at home isn't always there, and we're consistently grading it and docking kids and for that. So from my perspective, within the school day, if we increase the amount of instructional time, and which includes practice time, that we can kind of work closely to eliminating the idea of homework. And that's really exciting news for students and parents for the most of them.
Thank you. Nancy, go ahead.
A couple comments and then a couple questions. I appreciate the extended core time. I think that's going to be very advantageous. And I also appreciate the extended lunch recess time, because I think that's necessary as well. If you could get the kids to quiet down at recess, because I hear them around lunchtime and it distracts me from my yard, or from my my office. I'm just kidding. I'd love to hear them at lunchtime, because I think it's so necessary for them to get outside. So I appreciate the extra time that they'll have. Couple questions. The highlights, are those definite highlights, or are those would like tos? I guess.
Those are work throughs, and I just, it's like I said, we're working with a scheduling committee where we're taking into consideration everything everybody's saying. I know we're in a negotiation period right now, so I mean, I want to go quickly, but I recognize kind of the landscape that we're at right now.
Okay.
And I think it also requires, certainly further discussion with just the teachers and the students and the community at large.
So my computer just died that I was looking at, so I think I'll remember. Would there be a concern of moving the band and chorus to before and after to have kids not participate that normally would, or do you feel like everybody's going to continue?
I see it as how do you make that accessible? And that's where transportation is a must. In order to kind of make that shift, having morning transportation like we have, identified afternoon transportation through the late bus would be an essential component to that.
Okay. And then unified arts choice, is that kind of for real that they would be able to not choose a certain unified arts in a year? Or is it like over the 3 years, they really need to have a sampling of everything? Or
Yeah, and it's looking at it through the perspective of how can you make how can you make a continuation of learning that makes sense? And so choice within unified arts, if you're putting in full term Spanish and Latin, then choice for the most part goes out the window when you do that. Like there, because now you're defining ELA, mathematics, science, social studies, and either Spanish or Latin in 7th grade. So the opportunity for choice would be the bookends of the day through opportunities with clubs, or and for the most part, your day would be defined. At the 5th and 6th grade, I think you have a little more opportunity to kind of build in choice. So either performing arts or visual arts, you can kind of go in that route through STEM. You can kind of look at it through development through STEM, or practical application through community service learning. So I think there's different ways to kind of take on that challenge and to build in choice for students. I'm reluctant to kind of give up the idea of choice because students really seem to buy into that. And if we can offer it and have the core academics getting the appropriate time, then I'm all for it.
No, I agree. I think at that age, while exposure to different areas is important, I have 2 kids who are very stubborn, pig-headed, and don't like certain areas, and they have 0 interest in them. So I could see where that would be helpful for them to not have to have had to take certain classes just because it was 0 interest and it was almost painful to have them go through it. So I appreciate that. And I think that most kids will take that seriously, and they will dabble in a little bit of everything as well. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Adam, I just had a quick question. Well, first of all, I love the words passion project. Love it. And I'm wondering, kind of spinning off of what Nancy is saying, so how do you define passion project? Do the kids get to decide that for themselves? Is it within a framework? How do they decide what a passion project is?
And ideally, hey, Mark, do you want to take that one? Because I know we're talking about that.
So that just came from an idea that we had earlier this year, that for teachers largely to come up with offer courses that were driven from their passions. And so that if it was something that they're excited about, and they could develop an offering that was something that they were really passionate about, and develop so in this case, a club, an after school activity they were really passionate about, and their energy and their excitement, they were to pour that into it, that then kids would get excited about it as well. And then you'd let enrollment drive the offering. And that was something actually we're running some currently based upon a grant funding that we had available. We used it as an offering. We have a couple running at the high school, and we have one running out of one or two running out of the middle school right now. So I think Adam's carrying that concept forward as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I asked the question. I was just wondering if it was the kids deciding what the passions were, but it sounds like it's the teacher, so that's fine.
I think, yeah, you're sort of looking for the marriage of the two, right?
Okay.
But it's sort of coming from, teachers have other passions, right? Mm-hmm. So I might be an English teacher, but I really love, the ukulele. And so I might want to run a ukulele club after school. And so this is an opportunity for me to really get excited about something else that I'm excited about. I can think about a teacher at the middle school last year, or pre-pandemic rather, who ran a club for an after-school club where they built or they rehabbed old bicycles. He's kind of like a tinkerer and a fixer, and so he got a whole bunch of old bicycles, and they kind of did I forget the term, but there's like a TV show on this that you can find somewhere like on Discovery or whatever, but they take them and they like style them, and so it's kind of like fashioned after that. And it was just something that he was into, and then he found a whole group of kids that also got excited about it. And so it helps kids get engaged in school around common interests, right? It's a way, and again, it's connected with the teacher's interest that it's got nothing to do with what this teacher does, in their 9-to-5 job. So it's connecting outside passions with an opportunity for kids to have an enriching experience.
Okay, sounds great. And I love that example, because for the kids that are more kinesthetic or need to, work with their hands, that's actually a good option. Anything else from school committee members? All right, Adam?
I think I'm going to cut off right there, unless you guys have questions for me.
I think we're set, unless Joe has a question.
I was hoping.
Looking forward to hearing from you next year.
All right, sounds good. Thanks all.
Thank you, Adam. Have a great night. And I love those birds, Adam. I've been enjoying all the birds. So thank you very much. All right, moving to the next item under reports and discussions is our wellness presentation by Melissa McGuire.
Good evening. Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services. And I'm hoping if you give out awards anytime this year, I would like to get one for the shortest presentation. So here I go. So this presentation is really a culmination of the work that the Wellness Committee did this past year. And as you know, a Wellness Committee is required by every district through regulation. And the purpose is for them to develop district wellness policy, not develop it, but propose it. Obviously, it goes to the policy subcommittee and then to the full committee. And then to work on development of measurable goals for nutrition promotion and education. And then to review the assessment and the implementation of the policy. Those are the three main purposes. We had a very nice group of folks this year who participated on the Wellness Committee. We did originally have 3 students, and I heard them loud and clear about kind of those stressors everyone was talking about earlier. So they took a little bit of a hiatus from the committee, but I do appreciate their desire to be part of the Wellness Committee. We had 4 meetings this year. Each of the meetings was really to review each of the policy sections, and we did that in different breakout groups where people had an opportunity to really comment on each of the sections of the policy. And then our last meeting, we developed final recommendations for a policy. And so when we look at the timeline for the work that the committee does, first of all, we look at reviewing the policy and making recommendations, and then sending it to the policy subcommittee, which is why it's in your packet, because it is now being put forth to the policy subcommittee at their next meeting. And then, of course, doing the presentation for the first and second reading, and then a vote. And then we will share that in the fall with staff and parents and the community, and then developing goals that will be finalized by the principal. So those are the phases that we look at. And for this year, in terms of our activities, this year we were really diligent in publishing the wellness policy, not only in our website, but it went to all of our staff for review and feedback. And we did get some feedback, as well as to all of our families seeking feedback as well. And then, of course, the Wellness Committee meetings that we met to review all of those comments that were made. And then finally, here we are tonight. And then our hope is that at the June 7th policy subcommittee, that they will be able to put forth a policy at the next school committee meeting. Whoops. In terms of proposed goals, what we've listened to from our administrators, from our students, from everyone, is that really those goals should be set at the building with the administration, working with the students and the staff to develop that. In the past, we've kind of set some goals, but this year what we're doing is looking at 4 areas where those goals will be developed by the administration along with their students and staff. There's 2 where food service will have a goal in terms of next year creating a survey for caregivers and students to identify different food choices. And the other one will be for food services to continue to publish their educational newsletters. And then the two at the building base will be nutrition education and physical activity. And then a couple of question and answers that we thought was important to share is a question that came up is there signage that can be put up letting students know they can take more than one fruit? And absolutely, Garth assured us that we can do that, and it can be reinforced through classrooms and through school announcements. A question came up about whole milk being served, and no, it actually cannot be served per the USDA. So what they have now is 1%, 2%, and fat-free, and chocolate milk is fat-free as well, and lactate is also offered. Can student caregivers be surveyed as to what they would like to see on the menu? And that can be part of the newsletters and the goal that Garth will have for next year. There's a question about how much juice is available. And the answer was that it's only available at breakfast, and they choose not to serve it at lunch because they would rather have fresh fruit and vegetables because juice is a little bit higher in sugar. Should we justify chocolate milk just to get kids to drink milk, or should we try to educate and provide plain milk? Chocolate milk is fat-free and is what is allowed. The sugar content is between 1%, and chocolate is not that great. So there was not a big difference between the 1% and chocolate was the answer. And then what about limiting food additives and food coloring, which was a great question. And I thought this was a really great answer. Garth shared that basically what he does is there's a CN label, it's a child nutrition label. And what he's going to be doing is really looking for more of those foods that have the child nutrition labels on them. In terms of assessing the policy, there's quite a bit that goes into assessing the policy. These are all the different standards that we look at. And there's an actual assessment that we have online that we'll start to work on next year. But it looks at nutrition, physical activity, school-based activities, nutrition standards, standards for food, marketing, policy development, oversight, informing, and reviewing. So those are all the pieces that we want to make sure we incorporate. I'm not going to read all of these that's in your packet, but one of the things that the committee felt really strongly about is as we looked at what we should put forth for a recommended policy was to really get down to what was the basis for the policy and what the expectations are. That an 11-page policy is not getting a lot of traction, and folks are not feeling good about it. And a lot of it was really just not achievable. And because so many of those pieces really need to be have oversight at the building level, we wanted to make sure that from the pieces of the policy that came out, that we had important considerations to think about in terms of accessing healthy foods when the cafeteria is open, opportunities to receive nutrition education, having opportunities for physical activity before, during, and after school, nutrition and physical activity promotion, guidelines for maximizing nutritional value. And that's what that piece with the CN label that Garth's really going to be looking for. Not using food or beverages for reinforcements, and school celebrations and holidays and birthdays will emphasize physical activities and for positive youth development. So that is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Melissa. A very colorful presentation. Thank you so much. Sharon, did I see your hand?
Yes, I appreciated the colorfulness and how inviting it was to read them, Melissa. I really also appreciated the emphasis on activities, to making sure food isn't a reward, having fruit for lunch instead of juice. All of those things I really liked. I just have one question, because I remember when I was on the policy committee for this a couple years ago. At that time, sugar, Garth said we put in that there'd be no more than 25 grams of sugar, which is what's recommended by the American Heart Association for kids for an entire day. But we said we'd do that for one meal. So it wasn't over. Are we still keeping it to 20, no more than 25 grams of sugar in any given meal?
So all of those pieces came out. We streamlined it based on the MASC recommendations and all the exemplar policies that were reviewed. So those pieces that with that specificity, if you look at what's drafted to the policy subcommittee, have come out, because the end of the day, Garth has to follow the guidelines, and he has to be able to access the food that's available through those guidelines. So he puts forth an amazing effort to actually do those things, just like moving towards really checking to see if the food that he is ordering has the CN, the child nutrition labels, because that's where you get those lower counts. So that's what his goal is.
Okay, thank you.
And I did want to just let everyone know, in case you did not know, next year, breakfast and lunch is free for all students. So that will be for the entire year next year.
Thank you. Melissa, why is that? Is that being provided by a grant, or what was the decision behind that?
Actually, it's a really big push period to move forth with that as universal moving forward. There's certainly conversations that are happening at the state and federal level for that to happen. But when this past year through COVID, when that became accessible for all students, they really fought hard to make sure that that happened for next year as well.
That's good to hear. So there are some benefits of what we have gone through. Yep. Anybody else? All right, seeing none. Melissa, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to serve on that committee this year. Good group of people. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next item, which is future school committees. I wanted just to kind of throw this out because I've got, as the chairperson, I've got one more meeting to chair after this one, and then we will change our leadership. And I wanted to suggest, because we have June 24th already on the calendar. So I think we all know that we're meeting, but we don't have any other dates beyond that. So I just wanted to kind of throw this out to get you to thinking on whether or not we want to set at least a summer schedule, unless you just want to hold off, because my concern was getting to the 24th meeting, which is kind of our reorganization meeting, and we could certainly wait and make that decision there unless you wanted to at least get some summer dates on the calendar. So we could, during the summer, if we continued with our second and fourth Thursdays, then a possibility would be July 8th, July 22nd, August 12th, and August 26th. So that would be 4 summer meetings, or we could have 3 summer meetings, or we could have 3 summer meetings and a workshop. I hesitate probably to schedule the workshop. I would like to maybe save that and talk about that, because we will have a new school committee member on the 24th. So I think I would rather wait and talk about a workshop under the new chair and the vice chair and our new school committee member. But I just wanted to kind of put it out on the table on whether or not you wanted to at least consider scheduling summer meetings, or at least for July. So I'll just open that up. Jackie?
Like driving Miss Daisy tonight. I was just going to say, I remember last year, I think we've kind of moved away from not having summer meetings. And I know last year's definitely because of COVID. There just was a lot going on. And I think the summer prior, something was going on, but I would encourage, or I would suggest that maybe we move back to the latter, and that maybe we try and do 2. I think that the 24th reorganization meeting, and then maybe one the following, that first date in July, was that the 8th?
Yep, July 8th.
Follow up, and then perhaps we probably could go to the middle of August with the next scheduled one, and then that leaves availability if something pops up in the middle that we can, but it kind of gives us a little bit of a reprieve pending budgets and anything that may pop up.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Thank you. Anybody else with a thought on that? Sharon.
I like Jackie's idea. I remember we had our meeting scheduled for Wednesdays initially. And then when Karen Ryder was on, she had an issue with Wednesdays for childcare or something. And we changed it so that we could all be here on a Thursday. I know we're having one different school committee member for next year or in a month. So maybe it would be good for us to schedule something for July, but not move it too much. I do feel like we will need a workshop, but I do like the idea of maybe scheduling like 1 or 2 at the most meetings to see what people's schedules are.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Anybody else? Terry. And Terry, you'll have to come off mute. Just right down in the bottom of your corner. I think left, it should be left corner, Terry. Or actually, I remember you were on an iPad or something, so it might be up at the
No,
top.
I'm all set. I
There
touched
you
the
go.
wrong thing, so I thought I was going to be bailed out. I was just saying, I repeat that. I think the opportunity to have less meetings rather than say 4 gives us the opportunity to catch our breath. We've had a very, very busy season. It also gives the chair some flexibility if things start to move in a direction that we need to get together. There is subcommittee work to be done. The finance subcommittee probably would have a need to have a meeting. There's some meetings regarding Chatham and how that moves through the summer with information. So I'd just like to reinforce Jackie's thought. Whatever we set for a calendar, I think we're not losing too much momentum by meeting on those 2 times and then with the workshops.
Thank you. Nancy?
I might make a suggestion that we have one meeting in July, maybe in the middle, so like July 15th. And then maybe keep the 2 dates in August on the schedule, or maybe go down to 1. But I think that if we, again, to give the new chair time to, take things in and make the schedule. But I think having a date on the calendar is important, and maybe splitting the difference in the 2 in July. So I'm pretty sure July 15th would be the middle. And then, if it's necessary to keep 2, I think it's usually necessary, or it's helpful to have 2 on the schedule in August, if I remember from past years, because the August 26th one is very close to the beginning of the school year. Whereas there might be a need for 1, or maybe we could keep it on the schedule, the August 12th one on the schedule, and then cancel it if it's not needed. So keep, July 15th and then August 12th, August 26th, and cancel the 12th as needed. But just again, to keep it on the schedule for now, and then let the new chair sit down and develop a new schedule for starting in September.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody else? So how does it, Jackie, go ahead.
No, the only thing I would suggest, or I guess I would support what Sharon was saying too about changing the day of the week, that perhaps maybe in the summer, our summer meetings could not be on a Thursday and we could move them to a Tuesday or a Wednesday would be what I would propose.
Okay. So there's a lot we've talked about here. Do you want to at least set a July date, or should I put this on the June 10th meeting to solidify, at least for our summer schedule? I don't see anybody jumping.
I would like to get it solidified.
Okay.
Tonight would be helpful.
Okay. Sharon, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
I would just say, why don't we set the one towards the middle or beginning of July, and then maybe even next meeting, figure it out, or wait till the new person comes on and figure it out at the first meeting. I don't know. I'm open to anything.
Okay. I think what Nancy had said, because I know with vacations and plans and things, I don't know how, I'm sure some of us might want dates sooner than later. So the proposal that I'm hearing, we could consider July 8th, or Nancy suggested July 15th. Should we at least right now go ahead, July 5th or, July 8th or the 15th, we can go ahead and just pick one of those.
Yep.
I think the 15th sounds great. The 8th is still close to the 4th, so.
I agree.
Okay. So can we just have consensus for July 15th? Jackie, go ahead.
Can I just ask what day of the week that is?
That is a Thursday.
So my question is, can we do it on Wednesday?
July 14th. Actually, I know for my, well, no, actually I'm okay in July. Okay. I usually have a standing meeting on the second Wednesday, but I'm okay in July. So July 14th, everyone, anybody in opposition? And that would be a Wednesday, not a Thursday. Anybody opposed? All right, so let's go ahead then. We're July 14th, 6:30, and that would be a Wednesday. And then would you like me for the August dates? Nancy had suggested at least keeping the 12th and the 26th on the calendar, so we can have some consensus to do that tonight. Those are both Thursdays, or we can revisit this at the next meeting, which is June 10th.
Why don't we move towards accepting them tonight?
Okay.
August 12th and August 26th, and with the option to cancel one of those if it's not necessary.
Okay. All right. Consensus, anybody opposed to that? All right. So we're going to have August 12th and August 26th on the calendar, and then with the option to cancel one of those if needed. And both of those are Thursdays at 6:30. And just to repeat for the July date, that would be Wednesday, July 14th at 6:30.
So are we not, oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, are we not in consensus of moving the summer meetings to Wednesday evenings?
I apologize, Jackie. I did not get
That's
clear
what I'm
on what you're
suggesting.
saying.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, okay. So for August then, how does everybody feel to move those to a Wednesday over a Thursday? And that would probably, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I think it would be August 11th and August 25th.
Yes.
Any opposition? All right. So then for summer meetings, July and August, they will be on Wednesdays. So if you could mark your calendar, July 15th, August 11th, and August 25th. And all of those would be 6:30, and then we'll just kind of give ourselves the flexibility to cancel an August meeting if we want to. All right. Any comments? Anything?
Maybe
All
a
right.
reminder at the beginning of the week that we're meeting on Wednesday and not
Yes,
Thursday.
I think we'll
or
need,
maybe
yes.
multiple reminders, because that's the way my brain works. Maybe a
Yep.
Monday, a Tuesday, and a Wednesday reminder.
Absolutely. So I'll try. So whoever the new
Thursdays for a long
chair.
time.
Yep. All right. So Leah, I'm sure you're listening. So if you could just make a note that we will have to agree to some form of a reminder, just to remind people that we're meeting on Wednesdays and not Thursdays through the summer. And then whoever's the new chair can perhaps be involved in that reminder.
Confirmed.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we're good there. Moving on to the next item, which is the 2020-2021 Superintendent End of Cycle Self-Evaluation Report. Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, this one gives the school committee a chance to hear from Dr. Carpenter rather than the chair of the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee. We're rolling right along rather tightly on our schedule. The subcommittee has heard the self-evaluation from the superintendent, and now it's time to bring that to the attention of the entire school committee. So I'm muting and turning things over to Dr. Carpenter to present his self-evaluation for consideration of the members. And I would urge everybody to get working by tomorrow. Start working on your superintendent evaluation, including the essay, because if you procrastinate, well then, woe unto you.
And Superintendent, before you take over, Joe, can I ask you as the chair of the subcommittee, if you could send us, or at least send to me and I can forward, or if you could send all of us the actual form? I don't think I've seen it. So that we know what, so we have something to fill out.
Yeah, very quickly, the forms, let's see, Leah might be able to help us with that, but also the form should be available on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website in the area under supervision. I think they'll have a copy of the forms there. We might have hard copies in our office for people who have trouble printing, but after this meeting, we can get a couple people together and huddle, and I think Leah has a hand raised, so she may want to weigh in on this.
Yep, Leah, go ahead.
I was just going to offer, I'll send out the forms out electronically tomorrow to the whole committee.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you. Okay, Superintendent.
Sure, I'll just be quick. I know that in your packets there are two documents. They're similar to two documents that you've seen in past years. One is just a reflection that I wrote that has the goals that were proposed at the beginning of the year and a reflection on where where we're at with each of those goals. So the goals included expanding outreach and holding conversations with the superintendent over the course of the academic year. The second goal was on supporting the growth of our admin team and our new administrators. Third, the third one was looking at what are some of the successes and challenges that we've seen when it comes to distance learning versus in-person learning. Then there's moving the strategic plan forward and incorporating reports and presentations into our school committee meetings. And then the last was moving forward the school committee's resolution on race or on racism, race, and education. So there's reflections on each one of those in your packet. The other document ends up being the superintendent's rubric at a glance, which comes from the DESE administrator's rubric. I highlight in each one of the sections and each one of the elements for each indicator of each standard, where I think I kind of fell with regard to that piece this year. At the end of each standard, I have a short narrative that I've put together that really summarizes where that indicator or what that indicator looked like. So, for instance, the first standard on a superintendent rubric is instructional leadership, and the reflection that I sort of summarized at the end of that really looks at what did instruction look like at Monomoy, and how tangibly was that different from what instruction looked like in a lot of other school districts, and sort of look at sort of what is the role of the superintendent in doing that. I put some hyperlinks into this document that take you back if you need a refresher in terms of things that you've seen over the course of the year that have come from myself and our team as a whole. So there was an entire back to school plan that that really guided what this year is going to look like. So there's a hyperlink on that talks about that back to school plan. The next standard deals with management and operations. And again, there's a section and a reflection at the end of management and operations, and talks about where we are, how we sort of landed the plane, so to speak, budgetarily. The third standard deals with family and community engagement. And again, this reflects back on things that have happened with regard to both superintendent conversations and the community forums that the school committee held. And the last standard deals with professional culture. What I chose to sort of focus my reflection on in that is that there's that one of the standards deals with getting sharing, sort of developing and sharing a vision, and really at the end of the day, there's been a lot of sharing a vision. I don't want to say that everyone who's heard the vision agrees with the vision, but the school committee had a goal of addressing the regional agreement with sort of sub goals in there of one, looking at the fiscal equity piece, and two, looking at the educational program, particularly at the elementary school. And I have hyperlinks again here to the document that I wrote on equity at the elementary level, the presentations that we've given, so there are chances for you to kind of click on those hyperlinks and reflect back and go in the year in a review. But I think there's, if in many ways that one, that there's some aspects of this indicator that sort of that sort of highlight a number of the different conversations that we have had over the time frame from November even to this past superintendent conversation with the parents. So I'll sort of stop there, but there's two key documents. There's hyperlinks in that second document. If you struggle with hyperlinks, let me or Leah know and we can get you hard copies. But they all link back to things that are publicly posted on the district website.
Okay, thank you very much. Any clarifying questions from anyone regarding what the superintendent has shared? All right, seeing none. So, and then Leah, thank you. You're going to send out the forms for us. We appreciate that. And Joe, can you remind us again the deadline? Like what's the deadline and who is it going to once we fill it out? Who would you like it to go to?
Well, we have a couple more steps involved, and we'll be able to complete our work in June. We weren't anticipating or planning for a July meeting. So we still have the intention of completing our work. So what we do, the school committee has heard from the superintendent and his assessment. We have received in our packets tonight his written evaluation and comments and his assessments. It's now our turn to reflect and do a fundamental task of a school committee, which is that we ourselves assess the superintendent, filling out the standards, the subsections of the standards, which I think number 42 in all. So there's some real work involved ahead of us. We do that. We have an opportunity to write a narrative. It's not required by law, but traditionally we in the school committee have all written some commentary on a narrative, and I would hope that we would continue to do that. We have an opportunity at our next meeting to present our narratives, to speak up and say what we think is important. Again, that is not required by state law, but it's been the practice of the school committee. and I would hope we would maintain it. I think it's a very useful practice. And then finally, at our concluding meeting, the chair or the designee of the chair presents the results of a kind of compendium of all of the evaluatory comments of committee members, and it is the task of the chair or the designee to present the preponderant opinion of school committee members. We have tweaked that slightly to say we'd like to see a comment from each individual school committee member, particularly one that is highlighted by that member. So the superintendent is afforded the pleasure of 2 public commentaries, one by the committee members individually, or the committee in the entirety, assuming that all the committee members wish to do so. That would be at our first meeting in June. And then at our concluding meeting in June, the committee would have a chance to hear the kind of compendium evaluation from the chair or the designee. And that would bring matters to a close, and we roll forward next year with the establishment of the superintendent would establish goals for the coming year, etc. And we discuss those as the time is appropriate in the fall or late August even. So we have a couple, we have a couple things to do. We've got some work to do in assessment and evaluating the superintendent. It's a very, very big part of any school committee. That task is coming up. We need to have our work ready for the next meeting. So we need to get to work on that. And as I say, procrastination is a very bad idea at this part of our work.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of clarifying, and then I see Joanne's hand. I just wanted to clarify 2 things if I can. So June 10th, which is the next meeting, we can present our narratives should we choose, which is fine. June 24th is our reorganization meeting. So you had referenced that the chair would, or the designee, as the chair right now, I have designated Joanne to actually summarize the various narratives, and she will not be with us on the 24th to deliver it. And I will not be chair on the 24th. So I think we'll just have to get some clarification on who actually will be presenting that report. So that's my comment. Nancy, and then Joanne, I think, had her hand up.
Joanne can go first. She was.
Oh, Joanne.
You asked my questions. So on the 10th, all individuals will have in their evaluations, including a narrative, should they choose, they will have highlighted 1 or 2 sentences that they feel is important. And then on the 24th, there will be a document ready to be read by someone. Is that correct?
That's what I understand. And Joe is nodding his head. Okay.
Whose head was Joe? Oh, Joe's head was
Joe. Yeah.
Okay, good. That's just all I needed.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joanne, for that. Nancy?
I was just going to make the comment that I'm going to be very sad that Joanne is not joining us at our second meeting in June. I think that it is completely plausible that if her last task as a school committee member is to do the compilation on the final document, and then that's her work, and that's who you designated, Tina, as chair to do that. I think it can be anybody who reads the documents. So, I mean, even you as outgoing chair could read the document. I don't think it's anything official because we're voting on it as a committee on that night, or what's being presented that night, and then we would presumably vote the following meeting on that document. So I don't think it's really a matter of who reads it out loud to the public at the second meeting in June, because you as chair designated Joanne to be the compiler and the creator of the document. It's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any other Questions, comments? All right, Joe, go ahead.
Just to concur with Nancy, correct, the reading is not really the issue, as long as it's compiled. We could have a member of the subcommittee read it. I'd be willing to entertain the thought of extending to Ms. Sheehan a special one-time guest appearance to cap that off. That would be wonderful. But perhaps a member of the superintendent evaluation subcommittee could read it. That won't be a problem at all for us.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it's not debated. It's nothing that we debate, discuss. Your opinion is your opinion. You have the right to express it, and then we look for the preponderance of it. We present it, and the main thing is that it's a public statement. It's a public document. What we write, what we say, is on the record. 10 years from now, if a concerned citizen wants to find out what the school committee thought about the superintendent in 2021, they have a right to do so and do that research, and we should have that material available for them. So the main thing is it's a public document. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Jackie? Oh, you didn't have your hand up? Oh, you were just, okay. All right, so thank you for all that clarification. That's very helpful. So again, a reminder to school committee members at the next meeting, June 10th. So we do need to have our evaluations done, and narratives are optional. Should you choose to read them, we'll have space on the agenda at the June 10th meeting for you to do so. All right, good. Any other questions before we close that out? All right, seeing none, we're going to move into subcommittee reports, of which there are none. And then following is the superintendent's report. Superintendent.
Some quick recognitions. First of all, I would like to really extend some congratulations to Kathleen Davik and Rich Oldak, the advisors for the senior class at Monomoy. This has been a strange and crazy year where, while the state is encouraging graduations, the state is not encouraging proms. And we managed to pull off a wonderful prom under a tent on the front yard of the high school this past weekend. And I think throughout COVID, we have been doing everything we can to make things as normal as we can for our students while still being safe about it. And again, they put in some yeoman's work to help make the prom happen and to be successful. So congratulations to the two of them. I also would like to go and say I had a really fantastic opportunity yesterday to go see the Harwich Elementary kids earn their PBIS reward, and there was a little touch a truck event where the Harwich Fire Department, Harwich Police Department came out with their vehicles, and then the children were given the opportunity to, by class, get together, and there is a rope tied on to one of the fire trucks, and with the entire classroom working together, they were actually able to pull the fire truck. And it was neat. Like I think the kids thought initially there's no way that they're going to be able to pull the fire truck, but when the entire classes were working together, lo and behold, this massive fire truck started rolling forward. Definitely neat to see. I'd also like to thank the following organizations for their support of the Summer Safety Fair and Bike Rodeo at Harwich Elementary School last week. And we had Stonewood Products, the Mass Department of Transportation, the Mass Bicycle Coalition, Chatham Fire Department, the Harwich Fire Department, the Harwich Police Department, the Dennis Cycle Center, SnapEd Nutrition, Eldridge Public Library, Harwich Elementary PTO, the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, and Good Times Ice Cream. Let's see, in terms of other little updates, I don't want to jinx myself, but we have had a really quiet time when it comes to COVID, and I'd like to hopefully keep the school year going this way and close it out nicely. Just events coming up. There's a little thing in your the school committee packet on the Special Olympics coming to Monomoy June 15th. And then prior to that, just keep in mind that Sunday, June 6th, 6 p.m. is graduation, and we'll be holding it in person on our football field. And this year, I'm proud that families will be able to be in attendance. So so we're communicating out with families how this will work, but it will be similar to last year's graduation in that we will be sort of pre-recording things ahead of time, and it'll be sort of broadcast to those in the audience and broadcast out to those who can't be there or for reasons aren't able to attend. But then there will be an opportunity for students to come up and actually be handed a diploma this year, which again, we're seeing some baby steps forward in the right direction as we continue to head back towards some sort of normalcy. So again, that comes up a week from Sunday. That's it for me.
All righty, thank you very much. Any comments, questions for the superintendent? I just wanted to thank everybody that was involved in the prom. I saw a lot of beautiful photos and on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and the kids had a great time, and the families were so happy. So thanks to all who pulled that together. Moving into the next item under action items, we have a payment of prior year FY20 invoice. Michael, do you want to take that one?
Good evening, everybody. Yep, that's just an invoice which we received from one of our vendors who had just forgotten to bill us. So they sent us a bill, and they sent it. I think it's an April bill, and they sent it in April. So we mistakenly thought it was for April of this year, but on discovering it was actually April for this year, we wanted to get your approval before we issued the check.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I have a motion to approve that bill?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Nancy?
I move to approve that we pay Seven Hills in the amount of $4,078.20 in prior year invoice.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Sharon seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're going to take, Jackie, did you have a discussion? Okay. So we're going to take a vote to approve this payment of this bill, starting with Joe.
Joe Osceola, aye.
Thank you. Jackie?
Jacqueline Long, aye.
Thank you. Joanne?
Joanne Sheehan, aye.
Thank you. Sharon?
Sharon Stout, aye.
Thank you. Nancy?
Aye.
Thank you. Meredith?
Aye.
All right. Terry? And Terry, if you can hear us, you'll need to come off mute.
Aye.
Thank you. And I'm an aye, so that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. The next item is the second reading of policy file JICFB, Bullying Prevention and Intervention Plan. So this is one that we discussed last meeting and agreed to move it to a second reading. If I could have a motion to approve, please.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Nancy?
I move that we approve the policy bully prevention and intervention plan file JICFB.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Meredith. Any discussion? Seeing none, vote to approve for this particular policy, starting with Joe.
Joe Osceola, aye.
Thank you. Jackie?
Jackie, aye.
Thank you. Joanne?
Joanne, aye.
Thank you. Terry?
Aye.
Thank you. Sharon?
Sharon Stout, aye.
Thank you. Nancy?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that's unanimous. The second policy, this is second reading, policy file JBEBD. This is crowdfunding. Another one that we reviewed last meeting, agreed to move it to a second reading. If I could have a motion to approve, Nancy.
I move that we approve online fundraising and solicitations, crowdfunding policy GBEBD.
Thank you. A second? All right, Meredith has seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're going to go for a roll call vote to approve. Joe?
Joe Osceola, aye.
Thank you. Jackie?
Aye.
Thank you. Joanne?
Aye.
Sharon?
Sharon Stout, aye.
Thank you. Terry?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
And Tina, an aye. So that's unanimous. And the final policy, again, this is a second reading that we had last week. This is policy file JFBB, school choice. Could I have a motion to approve this one, Nancy?
I move that we approve the policy school choice file JFBB.
Thank you. And Meredith has seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, voting to approve the school choice policy, starting with Joe.
Joe Osceola, aye.
Thank you. Jackie?
Oops. Jackie, aye.
Thank you. Joanne?
Joanne Sheehan, aye.
Thank you. Terry?
Aye.
Thank you. Sharon?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
And Tina is an aye, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much. All three of those policies have been approved. The next item is the declaration of surplus. Who would like to take this one?
I can say a little bit about that. So there's two.
Oh, yes, Michael.
Thank you, Chair. So there's two items here. One is, well, two requests here. One is a new request from Harwich Elementary School for declaration of surplus of some mostly textbooks and classroom books which are no longer used and are gathering dust. And the second one is revisiting the request from the high school to have declared surplus some of the books from their library. So one of the members of the school committee had raised some concerns about the approach taken to how these books were identified and the issues with them. And I mean, I think some of that concern arose due to the way the books were described in the surplus form. They were described as being as racist and outdated and racially biased. And I think on further discussion, as we kind of referred at the meeting, it shouldn't really be outdated and racially biased. They were outdated or racially biased. So there's a bit of a mixture of books in there. Some are just outdated and some are racially biased. And maybe I did also go back and have a look at and talk to the librarian about how books are identified as surplus. So and I can just provide you a little background on that. It might help your decision. The first place is actually the school committee policy on how books are chosen. So the school committee has a policy that says, you know, library books should enrich and support the curriculum. They should stimulate growth. They should provide background information for students to help them make intelligent judgments and so on. So there's 5 or 6 criteria, and basically when it's the reverse of those is where they start. So it's books that no longer meet any of those criteria. But then, you know, within that kind of framework, they're also looking, there's different methods librarians use for weeding out their selections. And one example that was given was the acronym MUSTY. So that's M for misleading books, U for ugly books, as in ugly as in worn or torn or frayed. S is for superseded, books that are no longer, you know, have been superseded by more up-to-date editions. Trivial, so that's books that are with poor writing or inaccurate information. And Y, which is your collection has no more use for this book and the book is not circulating. So they use that sort of criteria to identify books for weeding out. And from the discussions, a lot of the books in the high school request are that really meet that Y. First of all, we just don't have much use for it because those books are no longer are not circulating. I think it was Mark found out that actually those books requests have not been checked out since Monomoy High School was created. So students aren't referring to the books. And then back to the M. So some of the books are misleading. So they are it was interesting. So they're not all racist, but the librarian said many of the books are culturally biased in that they exclude non-white history. So we are looking to have particularly historic books which give a much wider overview of history and not one that is purely driven by one outlook. So it's actually about trying to expand a student's outlooks, not to narrow it. But so maybe, I don't know if that's just a little more background into the process, if that helps out. There's more information I'd be happy to provide, but I don't want to keep you here too much longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions regarding the surplus or what Michael had described? Sharon? Sharon, did you have your hand up? Sharon? Okay. All right. Anybody with a question? Okay. Could I have a motion then to, I guess, approve the declaration of surplus? Can I have a motion, please? Can folks not hear me?
Chair,
Oh, can you hear me? Yes, Meredith, go ahead.
I move to approve the declaration of surplus as presented in our packet.
Thank you very much. And Nancy has seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, this is a vote to approve the declaration of surplus, starting with Joe.
Joe Osceola, aye.
Thank you, Jackie.
Aye.
Thank you, Joanne.
Aye.
Thank you, Terry.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
Sharon. And Sharon, we might be having sound problems. Meredith.
Aye.
I'm an aye. And Sharon, can you hear us? Are you good? Sharon, can you hear us? All right. Is that an aye? I think I take that as an aye. All right. I think Sharon is freezing. All right. It does pass. So it will pass on. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Oh, except for, I'm sorry, presentation of warrants. Because we're meeting remotely tonight, Joanne has signed on our behalf. Now, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy, and Meredith seconded. Roll call vote, starting with Joe.
Joe Osceola, aye.
Thank you, Jackie.
Aye.
Thank you, Joanne.
Aye.
Terry.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
Sharon. All right, I think we're having some sound issues with Sharon.
I can't.
I think she's.
It's low system.
All right.
It says low system
Okay.
resources.
All right. Okay. And I'm an aye.
listening.
So the meeting has been adjourned at 8:50 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, all.
We'll see you on June